are? I worked with a select group of successful business owners to help them make work optional. That stands out because, oh, let's go back to that radio station, right? WIIFM. If you're a business owner, if we're going to reverse roles a little bit, if you're a business owner and you hear that, you're thinking, whoa, I want to make work optional. How can I do that, right? So that's the difference. So we're going to walk through the steps to create your own positioning statement. All right? Now, we can cheat a little because I gave you a double-sided page with the top 10 most popular now. No price. It's priceless. All right? I want to help you a little bit. Let me show you how to do it, though. So part one is this. You want to create an agreement using an undeniable truth. So, as you mentioned, right, when I asked the question, how many of you like to deal with a car salesman when you're buying a new car? I really don't. Pretty much an undeniable truth. So that's why Floyd asked, you know how most people don't like the process of buying a new car because they don't like dealing with a salesperson. That's part one. Part two is this. What's the most important idea you want to share that helps your listener or your audience in this case, right? And he said, what I do is for $295, 15-point process. Think about this. You've never heard that, and yet you remembered it, right? So if you're in the business of, or in the process of buying a new car, you may say, hey, Floyd, I need your card. $295 is nothing, right? Right? So that's the step. That's the process. So here's a question for you. What are three primary concerns your clients face right now? Anybody. This is when you get to speak up, because I talk way too much. Yes, sir?
Will they have enough to retire?
Comes up every time. The question was, will they have enough to retire? Let's just take a step back. It's 1950. You're my financial advisor. I can't see your name. I'm too far back.
Andre.
Andre. I go into Andre's office and say, I'm ready to retire. I'm 63 years old. You've helped me build up a great portfolio. We have a great relationship, and I'm thrilled. Andre says, Neil, it's been a pleasure. And this money will last you the rest of your life. I'm 62. It's 1950. How many years am I going to live?
13 years.
Maybe 3. So Andre would be completely right, because the life, you know, with the, how do you put it?
Mortality.
Thank you. Mortality rate back then was very little. What about now? People retire at 65. What are some of the oldest clients you've heard of?
90.
Yeah, 90, over 100. I hear that nationwide now. It's very, very common. So that's a very valid concern, because people aren't going to retire at 62 and die in 3 years. Got to be willing, you know, they take care of themselves and exercise and do the yoga and eat yogurt and all that stuff, right? So it's a very valid concern. What's another concern, ladies and gentlemen? Another concern your clients face. You deal with them all the time.
Market risk.
Market risk, absolutely. How many were around during 1999 and know what the markets were doing, 1999, 2000? Okay, let me just give you a little flashback. I have the Wall Street Journal in my briefcase. From March 1999 to March 2000, guess how many funds were up over 100% for that trailing 12? 275. Funds up over 100%. That was a tech explosion. The number one fund was some Neuberger fund, up 535% for 1 year. So I'm hosting a client event for one of my top producers. And there are about 50 people in the room at round tables. We're having dinner. I get up and give a little chat about the economy, and it's really upbeat and positive. And I ask folks, what are you expecting from your portfolio going forward? And this sweet, beautiful young lady, about 85 years old, stands up and she says, I know what the markets are doing. This is insane. I don't need 100% return. I don't think it's going to last. But she said, if I can get like 30 or 40% a year for the next 20 years, all that money is going to my grandkids. Imagine that, 30 to 40% a year. So many of my advisors are calling and they're saying, Neil, I'm trying to talk to my clients about asset allocation and diversification and how I can give them an average of 10 to 12% over the next 20 years. Like, 10 to 12%, my neighbor gets that in a week. So here's the good news. People are back to reality, right? And they're not expecting insane returns again because that whole thing changed. And they will listen to you. They'll listen to you again. All right, but outliving their money, big one. Market volatility, big one. What about funding college for the children, right? Also, all right. So here's my question to you. Let's go back to the first one Andre shared. Outliving their money. What is something you can do? If I met with you next week, and I tell you about my portfolio, and I say, I'm going to tell you, I'm 58 years old. I'm worried about outliving my assets. What solution do you have? Anybody?
Annuity?
Annuity, right? Can you give me something that I can't outlive? Right? If I manage how I spend? An annuity. So how would you put that? Do you know how so many investors, baby boomers are concerned about outliving their assets? Well, what we can do here at Merrill Lynch is provide a, how do you put it?
Guaranteed source of income?
Guaranteed source of income? Yeah, what else would you say? Lifetime source of income that you can't outlive, right? And we can set that up so when you do pass away and we all move on, we can make sure that goes to your heirs or whatever. That puts people at ease. So when someone asks you next time, hey, so what do you do? Well, do you know how so many people are concerned about outliving their assets? What we do, or what I do, is sit with them to provide a long-term revenue stream that they can't outlive. Do you think someone might say, whoa, how do you do that? As opposed to, I'm a financial advisor. Just a thought, give me your feedback. What do you think? All right? So that's your mission, is to find something that works for you. So let me give you a little example. Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. Page 92 of the book. So what? Frank is actually a client of ours. He's a great guy, too handicapped. He's a lot of fun to golf with. Frank had just arrived at his favorite golf course and was introduced to the other two members of his foursome, both business owners who he'd never met before. Before they teed off, one of the business owners asked Frank, so what do you do? Right, just as we're talking about. Without missing a beat and appearing spontaneous, Frank said, do you know how most business owners have a CFO to help them manage their company's money? Is that an undeniable truth? Ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, absolutely, okay. So he copied the formula. The business owner said yes. By this point, the other businessman was listening as well. He said, well, what I do is work as a personal CFO for my clients to help them make work optional. And one of them said, well, how do you do that? He said, let's golf first. We'll talk over lunch. And they went out, and he picked up 2 new clients that day. Now, who's ever listened to Paul Harvey, the radio show? Paul Harvey? All right. So he would tell a story, and then they'd take a commercial break. He'd come back and he'd say, now, for the rest of the story. Let me tell you the rest of the story. Frank Doney is with MetLife. If his response was, oh, when they asked what do you do, I'm with MetLife. And personally, I'm thinking, oh my God, 18 holes of why I need life insurance, right? I just remember I have a root canal. I can't play golf. What am I doing here? I gotta run. But here's the rest of the story. Frank Doney's not, yeah, he's with MetLife, but he's been $1 million roundtable for dozens of years. The guy's wildly successful. He does a lot more than sell life insurance, right? But he answered with a very good script that captured the attention. So I'm giving this presentation in Scottsdale, Arizona. 400 people in the audience. And somebody in like 20 rows back jumps up and says, I could never say I'm a personal CFO to make work optional. But what did I talk about earlier with scripts? You have to find something that's credible to you. Something you believe, right? Because when it rolls off your tongue, it has to sound sincere and realistic. So I don't care, personally, what you use. I just encourage you to have one. And have a good one. And it's going to turn, it's going to change. So people would ask me when I'm doing this training, well, wait a minute, what was yours as a wholesaler back in the day? I'd stand up in front of the audience. I remember doing this for the first time, downtown Merrill Lynch, Boston, the downtown Boston Merrill Lynch office on 125 High Street. And I said, do you know how so many wholesalers come in here to pitch their hottest, greatest fund? That's not what I do. I do something completely different. My focus is to provide best practices to help you grow your business. People are like, whoa, okay, you got my attention. Now listen, what are you talking about? I said, what do you want to talk about? We can talk about referrals, we can talk about client events, we can talk about anything. And I would just go. So that's the difference. So my encouragement to you is to find something that works. Instead of having you create everything from scratch, that's why I gave you the top 10. Is that useful? Okay. Just another tool to use. All right, so that's enough on the scripting. I'm not going to bombard you on this. Did you get the point? Are there any questions on it? Okay, now let's dive deep. Let's talk about getting referrals. Let's talk about strengthening relationships. When I hired Mark McNacka, and I may have mentioned earlier, I was working 70 hours a week. I was burnt out. And Mark said, well, you know, what are you doing? And I said, God, I'm cold calling, and I love converting an advisor who's never done